This book was generated using Speakter's AI voices. You can create human-like voiceovers in over 50 languages.
Lahore, the bustling heart of India, pulsed with life and color. The city teemed with a vibrant chaos that seemed to breathe with its own rhythm. Amidst this swirling tapestry of humanity, 13-year-old Kimball O'Hara, known simply as Kim, moved like a fish through water. The relentless sun beat down on the crowded bazaars, turning the air into a thick soup of spices, sweat, and 1,000 intermingling voices. Kim's eyes, sharp as a hawk's, darted from face to face as he wove through the throng. His bare feet, calloused and nimble, barely touched the sun-baked earth. Born to an Irish soldier father long since passed and left in the care of a half-caste woman, Kim had found his true home and education in the labyrinthine streets of Lahore. As he ducked under a merchant's colorful awning, the rapid-fire Hindi of nearby traders caught his ear. Without missing a beat, Kim's agile mind switched gears, thinking in Hindi, then just as swiftly in Urdu as he passed a group of Muslim traders. English, too, flowed from his lips when needed, as natural as the air he breathed. This linguistic acrobatics had earned him the affectionate moniker, Little Friend of All the World, a title he wore like a badge of honor. Kim's day unfolded like a patchwork quilt of mischief and odd jobs. One moment he was sprinting through narrow alleys, delivering a cryptic message for a wealthy merchant, his heart pounding with the thrill of secrecy. The next he was helping a wrinkled widow carry her groceries, her blessing warming him more than the scorching sun ever could. But it was the task from Mahbub Ali, a Pashtun horse trader with eyes that twinkled with mischief to rival Kim's own, that truly set his blood racing. "Ah, there you are, you little street rat," Mahbub Ali's gruff voice boomed as Kim approached his stall. The man's tone, rough as sandpaper, couldn't hide the fondness that lay beneath. "I've got a job for you." Kim's face split into a grin, his hand unconsciously touching the leather amulet that hung around his neck. Inside, hidden from the world, lay documents about his identity, a secret as closely guarded as a king's treasure. Despite his European heritage, Kim's heart beat in time with the pulse of India. The amulet was a whisper of a past he barely remembered, while the cacophony of the streets around him sang of his present and future. As he set off on Mahbub Ali's mysterious errand, Kim's senses came alive. The riot of colors from women's saris as they haggled over vegetables, the acrid smell of tanned leather wafting from the cobbler's stall, the distant, haunting call to prayer from a nearby mosque. All of it wove together into a tapestry of life that Kim read as easily as others might read a book. Years on the street had honed Kim's powers of observation to a razor's edge. He could spot a pickpocket's telltale movements at 50 paces, discern a man's profession by the calluses on his hands, or gauge a merchant's mood by the set of his shoulders. These skills, along with his talent for gathering information, were more than just survival tools. They were the seeds of something greater, though Kim couldn't yet fathom what that might be. As the relentless Indian sun began its descent, painting the sky in a breathtaking palette of oranges and pinks, Kim found himself effortlessly gliding between different social classes and religious communities. He shared a simple meal of dal and rice with a group of Hindu pilgrims, their stories of far-off temples igniting his imagination. He swapped good-natured insults with Muslim schoolboys, their laughter echoing off the ancient city walls. He even managed to charm a few shiny coins from a British officer's wife, her pale face flushed with the heat and amusement at this street urchin's quick wit. In each encounter, Kim was like water, taking on the shape of whatever container he found himself in, yet always retaining his essential self. As night began to fall, casting long shadows across the now quieting streets of Lahore, Kim made his way to his sleeping spot on the roof of a friendly shopkeeper's store. His mind buzzed with the day's events, each memory a treasure to be examined and stored away. Lying on his back, looking up at the emerging stars, Kim felt a sense of belonging that transcended nationality or creed. He was a child of Lahore, a friend to all, and tomorrow would bring yet another day of adventure in the great sprawling epic of India. But as Kim's eyes began to close, heavy with the day's exertions, a strange feeling of anticipation crept over him. Something in the air felt different, charged with an energy he couldn't quite name. As he drifted off to sleep, Kim couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow would bring more than just another day of familiar adventures. Little did he know that the scorching heat of the coming day would usher in a change that would alter the course of his life forever, beginning with an unexpected encounter outside the Grand Wonder House, known to most as the Lahore Museum. The scorching heat of Lahore bore down on the city like a heavy blanket. It was on such a sweltering afternoon that Kim's life took an unexpected turn outside the Grand Wonder House, also known as the Lahore Museum. The air shimmered with heat, distorting the bustling crowd that surged around the museum's entrance. Amidst the chaos of vendors hawking their wares and the constant chatter of passers-by, Kim's sharp eyes caught sight of an unusual figure. An old Tibetan Lama stood motionless, a serene island in a sea of movement. The Lama's weathered face told a story of years spent in quiet contemplation. His eyes, deep and wise, seemed to look beyond the physical world. Kim, street-smart and ever-curious, felt an irresistible pull towards this enigmatic stranger. The boy's bare feet padded silently across the sun-baked ground as he approached. "What brings you to Lahore, Holy One?" Kim asked, his voice a mix of respect and curiosity. The Lama's gaze focused on Kim, a gentle smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I seek the River of the Arrow, young one," he replied, his voice soft yet filled with purpose. "It is a place of great enlightenment, hidden somewhere in this vast land." Kim's imagination ignited like a spark in dry tinder. The Lama's words painted vivid images in his mind. A sacred river flowing through lush forests, its waters holding the key to profound wisdom. The boy's heart raced with excitement at the prospect of adventure. "I could be your chela, your disciple," Kim offered eagerly, his quick mind already formulating plans. "I know these streets like the back of my hand. I can help you navigate this chaos." The Lama studied Kim for a moment, sensing the potential that lay beneath the boy's ragged exterior. With a gentle nod, he accepted Kim's offer. Together they plunged into the labyrinth of Lahore's streets. Kim darted between carts and animals with the agility of a street cat, his small frame easily slipping through gaps in the crowd. The Lama followed at a measured pace, his calm presence a stark contrast to the frenetic energy around them. The sounds of the city enveloped them, the bleating of goats, the shouts of merchants, the rumble of cartwheels on cobblestones. The air was thick with the scent of spices and incense, mingling with the less pleasant odors of animals and unwashed bodies. As they walked, Kim's mind raced with possibilities. This could be his ticket to a world beyond the confines of the city he knew so well. He imagined himself and the Lama traversing the length and breadth of India, two unlikely companions bound by fate and mutual need. Their journey brought them to the Wonder House itself. As they stepped inside, the cool air washed over them like a soothing balm. The hushed atmosphere was a stark contrast to the cacophony outside. The Lama's eyes widened in awe at the sight of countless Buddhist artifacts, each piece a testament to the rich history of his faith. The curator, a learned man with a passion for Eastern religions, recognized the depth of the Lama's knowledge. Soon the two were engrossed in animated discussions about intricate details of Buddhist philosophy and art. Their words danced through the air like delicate strands of silk, weaving complex patterns of thought. Kim, ever the observer, absorbed every word of their conversation. Though much of it was beyond his understanding, he sensed the importance of these exchanges. He watched the Lama's face light up with joy as he examined each artifact, noting how the old man's fingers trembled slightly as they traced the contours of ancient statues. As the day wore on, Kim's mind began to churn with plans. The world suddenly seemed vast and full of promise. He envisioned himself and the Lama traversing the length and breadth of India, two unlikely companions bound by fate and mutual need. With careful words and subtle suggestions, Kim began to plant the seed of this idea in the Lama's mind. The boy's street smarts complemented the Lama's unworldly wisdom perfectly. Where the old man saw spiritual significance, Kim saw practical challenges to overcome. Together they formed a partnership that seemed destined for great adventures. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the museum's windows, Kim made his move. With a mixture of respect and cunning, he convinced the Lama to let him accompany him on his journey across India. The old man, touched by the boy's eagerness and sensing a deeper purpose at work, agreed. They stepped out of the Wonder House and into the fading light of day. The city was bathed in a golden glow, the heat of the afternoon giving way to a gentle evening breeze. Kim's heart pounded with excitement and a touch of fear. He was about to leave behind everything he knew, embarking on a journey into the unknown. As they walked toward the train station, the llama's hand resting lightly on Kim's shoulder, the boy couldn't help but wonder what adventures awaited them. The vast expanse of India stretched before them, filled with promise and danger in equal measure. What secrets would they uncover? What challenges would they face? With each step, the familiar streets of Lahore fell away behind them. Ahead lay a world of mystery, adventure, and perhaps even enlightenment. Kim took a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever lay ahead. As they approached the station, the whistle of an approaching train pierced the air, signaling the start of their grand journey across India. Kim and the llama embarked on their grand journey across India. Their adventure would take them through a tapestry of landscapes, from bustling cities to serene villages, by train and on foot. The railway station hummed with life, a symphony of human voices mingling with the hiss and clank of steam engines. Kim's eyes darted about, drinking in every detail, his mind whirring like the gears of the locomotives around him. A mischievous grin played on his lips as he approached the ticket counter, charm oozing from every pore. His silver tongue wove a tale so convincing that even he was almost fooled. Before long, 2 free tickets materialized in his hand, much to the llama's quiet amazement. As they boarded the train, the carriage transformed into a microcosm of India itself. The air was thick with the scent of spices and humanity, a heady mix that made Kim's nostrils flare with excitement. In one corner sat a wealthy old lady from Kulu, her silk sari a riot of colors that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Her bejeweled hands rested in her lap like exotic birds at rest. Beside her, her Hindu attendant's words flowed like a monsoon-swollen river, barely pausing for breath. Kim's wit sparkled in conversation, his words dancing from topic to topic with the agility of a mountain goat. The llama's serene presence, in contrast, seemed to calm even the most agitated of travelers. His quiet wisdom a balm to frayed nerves. Their fellow passengers, won over by the unlikely pair, shared their food and stories freely. Parcels were unwrapped, revealing an array of delicacies from different regions. The aroma of cumin, cardamom, and saffron filled the air, making Kim's mouth water. He savored each morsel, his taste buds dancing with delight, while the llama ate sparingly, his mind focused on higher matters. Outside the window, the landscape rushed by in a blur of green fields and dusty plains. The llama seized this moment of relative quiet to impart his wisdom. His voice, soft yet clear, explained the intricacies of the wheel of life and the Four Noble Truths. Kim listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration, trying to grasp these complex concepts that seemed as vast and mysterious as India itself. When they disembarked, the real test began. The bustling streets of unknown towns stretched before them, a labyrinth of sights, sounds, and smells that assaulted their senses. Here, Kim's street smarts shone like a beacon. He navigated the crowded bazaars with the ease of a fish in water, his small frame slipping through gaps in the crowd that seemed to appear just for him. He bartered for food with a skill that belied his years, his voice rising and falling in the age-old dance of commerce. The llama watched in quiet admiration, recognizing the boy's unique gifts. Their journey took them to holy sites where ancient stones whispered secrets of the past. Rivers crossed their path, some no more than trickling streams, others wide and majestic. At each, the llama's eyes would light up with hope, searching for signs of the river of the arrow. Though disappointment often followed, his faith never wavered, as steady as the flow of the waters they encountered. Kim's keen eyes absorbed everything around them. In busy city streets, he blended in like a chameleon, his ears pricked for snippets of conversation, his gaze noting the ebb and flow of local life. In quiet villages, he charmed elders with his respectful manner, gleaning wisdom and stories that added vibrant hues to their quest. As the days passed, a change began to take root in Kim's heart. The spiritual aspects of their journey, once as foreign to him as the distant mountains, began to resonate. He found himself pondering the Lama's teachings in quiet moments, even as his mischievous nature continued to bubble just beneath the surface, ready to burst forth at any moment. The challenges of the road forged a bond between them stronger than the finest steel from a master blacksmith. Kim's respect for the Lama grew with each passing day, the old man's wisdom and patience a steady anchor in the sea of their travels. In turn, the Lama came to rely on Kim's quick thinking and boundless energy, the boy's presence a comfort in this vast and sometimes bewildering land. Their path wound through the heart of India, each new location a fresh page in Kim's education. Bustling cities with their maze-like streets and colorful markets gave way to tranquil villages nestled in the folds of rolling hills. Sacred sites, heavy with the weight of centuries, offered moments of quiet reflection, the air thick with incense and whispered prayers. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Kim and the Lama found themselves on the outskirts of yet another village. The day's journey had been long, and weariness tugged at their limbs like leaden weights. Yet as they looked at each other, a shared understanding passed between them. Their quest was far from over, but with each step, each challenge overcome, they drew closer not just to their goal, but to a deeper understanding of themselves and the vast, varied landscape of India that surrounded them. The soft gurgle of water caught Kim's attention. His eyes, sharp even in the fading light, spotted a glimmer through the trees. "Look, Holy One," he whispered, his voice tinged with excitement. "A river!" The Lama's face lit up with hope, his weariness forgotten. As they approached the riverbank, the sound of men's voices drifted towards them. Kim froze, his body tensing like a coiled spring. Through the gathering dusk, he could make out the unmistakable outline of military tents. His heart began to race as a fragment of memory stirred in the depths of his mind. Could it be? The Mavericks? Kim and the Lama's journey took an unexpected turn. Near a riverbank, they stumbled upon the camp of the Mavericks, an Irish regiment that held a special place in Kim's past. The air hummed with activity, a stark contrast to the quiet roads they had been traveling. Tents sprouted from the earth like giant mushrooms, their canvas walls flapping in the breeze. The clatter of mess tins and the rough laughter of soldiers filled the air, creating a symphony of military life that stirred something deep within Kim's chest. For Kim, it was like stepping into one of his father's old tales, the stories that had painted his childhood with vibrant hues of adventure. The familiar scent of gun oil and leather mingled with the earthy aroma of the nearby river, creating a heady mixture that made his head spin with excitement and nostalgia. Curiosity tugged at Kim like an insistent child, its invisible fingers pulling him toward the heart of the camp. His feet moved of their own accord, carrying him past cooking fires and groups of soldiers engaged in animated conversation. The Lama, lost in his own thoughts, barely noticed as the boy slipped away, his small form soon swallowed up by the bustling camp. As Kim wove through the maze of tents and equipment, his sharp eyes took in every detail, the glint of polished buttons, the worn leather of boots, the way the soldiers carried themselves. All of it fascinated him, each observation filed away in his ever-growing mental catalog of the world. It wasn't long before Kim's presence caught the attention of Father Victor, the regiment's Catholic chaplain. The priest's gaze lingered on Kim's face, noting the European features that stood out like a rose among thorns in this sea of local children. His brow furrowed, a mixture of curiosity and concern etching itself across his weathered face. "Boy," Father Victor called out, his voice cutting through the din of the camp. "What's your name?" Kim's response was as natural as breathing, the words rolling off his tongue with practiced ease. "Kimball O'Hara, Father." It was a name he knew but rarely used, a secret identity he carried like a hidden treasure. The chaplain's eyebrows shot up, disappearing under the brim of his hat. His eyes widened, a spark of recognition igniting within them. "O'Hara, you say? That's an Irish name if ever I heard one. Where did you come from, lad?" Kim's hand went to the amulet around his neck, a reflex born of years of secrecy. The cool metal pressed against his palm, a reminder of all he had been and all he might become. But something in the priest's kind eyes made him pause. With a deep breath that seemed to draw courage from the very air around him, He unclasped the amulet and revealed the documents hidden within. The camp seemed to hold its breath as Father Victor and the Anglican chaplain Bennett pored over the papers. Their expressions shifted like clouds across a stormy sky. Disbelief, amazement, and finally a sense of purpose that made Kim's stomach churn with unease. "Well, I'll be," Father Victor muttered, his voice thick with emotion. "You're one of our own, lad. Irish through and through." The words hung in the air like smoke, changing everything and nothing all at once. Kim felt as if he were standing on the edge of a great precipice, the familiar world of the streets behind him and an unknown future yawning before him. The ground beneath his feet seemed to shift, reality bending and reshaping itself around this new truth. The officer's decision came swiftly, like a sudden gust of wind that threatens to sweep you off your feet. Kim was to be educated, molded into the Englishman his heritage demanded. The street smart boy who had roamed freely across India was to be replaced by a proper young gentleman, polished and refined. As the news spread through the camp like wildfire, Kim felt a war raging inside him. Part of him thrilled at the idea of school, of learning the secrets that had always been just out of reach. But another part, wild and free as the wind that swept across the plains, rebelled against the very thought of confinement. The Lama, when told of the discovery, nodded sagely. His eyes, usually focused on some distant point beyond mortal sight, fixed on Kim with a mixture of sadness and understanding. "This is your path, Chela," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "You must follow where it leads." Kim's heart felt like a caged bird, beating frantically against his ribs. He wanted to run, to disappear into the familiar chaos of the bazaar, where he could lose himself in the crowd. But the documents in Father Victor's hands anchored him to this new reality, tying him to a future he had never imagined. As the regiment bustled around him, making plans and sending telegrams, Kim stood still, a small island in a sea of change. He thought of the long roads he had traveled with the Lama, the freedom of the open sky above them. Now those roads seemed to be closing, leading him instead to classrooms and uniforms, to a life bound by rules and expectations. The sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Kim watched as the colors bled into each other, much like his past and future were now blending into an uncertain present. He felt a lump form in his throat as he realized that tomorrow he would be saying goodbye to the Lama and the only life he had ever known. As Kim prepared to depart, a whirlwind of emotions swept through him. Excitement bubbled up at the prospect of new adventures, while apprehension coiled in his stomach like a restless snake. But overshadowing it all was a profound sadness, a yearning for the simplicity of his life on the road and the quiet wisdom of the Lama. With a heavy heart and a mind full of questions, Kim stood on the threshold of a new chapter in his life. The familiar world of dusty roads and bustling bazaars was fading behind him like a beautiful, half-remembered dream. As night fell and the camp settled into a quieter rhythm, Kim's thoughts turned to the journey ahead. In the distance, he could almost hear the sounds of Lahore calling to him, the bustling streets, the familiar sights and smells. They were waiting for him, but would they still feel like home? As sleep finally claimed him, Kim's dreams were filled with visions of a city both familiar and strange, a place where his past and future collided in ways he could never have imagined. The bustling streets of Lahore pulsed with life, a cacophony of sounds and smells that Kim had always called home. But today, everything felt different. The weight of the message in his pocket seemed to burn against his skin, a constant reminder of the dangerous world he had just stepped into. Kim's heart raced as he navigated the crowded bazaars, his feet carrying him swiftly towards Colonel Creighton's office. The sun beat down mercilessly, turning the city into a shimmering mirage of heat and dust. Sweat trickled down his back, a mixture of the sweltering temperature and the nervous excitement coursing through his veins. As he handed over the message, the colonel's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of recognition passing over his face. In that moment, Kim felt a surge of pride. He had proven his worth, taken his first step into a world of shadows and secrets. The transition to St. Xavier's School in Lucknow hit Kim like a tidal wave. Gone were the familiar sights and sounds of the streets, replaced by rigid schedules and starched uniforms. The school's imposing stone walls loomed over him, as confining as a prison to a boy who had known nothing but freedom. Days blurred together in a haze of lessons and rules. Kim felt like a wild bird trapped in a gilded cage, his spirit yearning for the open skies of his former life. The strict routine chafed at him like an ill-fitting shoe, and he found himself counting the minutes until he could escape the confines of the classroom. But Kim was nothing if not adaptable. Slowly, like a chameleon changing its colors, he began to adjust to his new environment. His quick mind, honed by years of street smarts, found new challenges in the world of books and numbers. English words, once as foreign as the moon, began to roll off his tongue with increasing ease. Mathematics, a language of its own, became a puzzle he was determined to solve. Map-making captured his imagination like nothing else. As he traced coastlines and mountain ranges, Kim's mind wandered to the vast landscapes they represented. Each map was a new adventure waiting to happen, a promise of future explorations. He could almost feel the wind on his face, hear the crunch of gravel under his feet as he imagined himself traversing these far-off lands. Throughout it all, the llama remained a constant presence in Kim's thoughts. Letters flew back and forth like birds carrying messages of two worlds, the spiritual quest of the llama and Kim's new life as a sahib. These letters were a lifeline, anchoring Kim to his past while he navigated the unfamiliar waters of his present. The llama's words, filled with wisdom and compassion, soothed Kim's restless spirit like a cool balm on sunburned skin. School holidays brought a welcome respite and a return to the world of intrigue. Mahbub Ali, like a fox teaching its kit to hunt, set Kim small tasks that sharpened his wits. Delivering coded messages, observing strangers, memorizing details. Each assignment was a thrill that made Kim's blood sing with excitement. These clandestine activities were like sips of cool water to a man dying of thirst, reminding Kim of the life that awaited him beyond the school gates. Colonel Creighton watched Kim's progress with the keen eye of a chess master, evaluating a promising piece. He saw in Kim a unique blend of East and West, street smarts and book learning, innocence and cunning. In Kim, Creighton recognized a potential agent unlike any other, someone who could move seamlessly between worlds, gathering intelligence that could tip the scales in the great game. As the years passed, Kim's education took on a dual nature. By day, he learned the ways of an English gentleman, his accent and manners slowly transforming. But in the shadows, a different education was taking place. Creighton, seeing the diamond in the rough, began to shape Kim for a future in espionage. Kim stood at the crossroads of two worlds, one foot in each, belonging fully to neither yet uniquely suited to both. As he looked to the future, he felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. The great game beckoned, promising adventure and danger in equal measure. As the sun set on another day at St. Xavier's, Kim found himself restless, his mind racing with possibilities. Little did he know that beyond the school's walls, Colonel Creighton was already setting plans in motion. The next phase of Kim's education was about to begin, one that would test his skills, his loyalty, and his very identity in ways he could never have imagined. Kim's education in the great game was advancing at a rapid pace. Colonel Creighton, recognizing the boy's innate talent, began to involve him more deeply in the intricate world of espionage. The streets of Lahore hummed with life, a cacophony of sounds and smells that assaulted Kim's senses as he wove through the crowded bazaars. The air was thick with the scent of spices and sweat, mingling with the dust kicked up by countless feet. School holidays had become a time of exhilarating danger, filled with secret meetings and covert missions that set Kim's heart racing. Mahbub Ali, the Afghan horse trader with eyes that sparkled with mischief and wisdom, had taken Kim under his wing. His gravelly voice was low and urgent as he imparted his wisdom. "Remember, little friend," he'd say, his breath hot against Kim's ear. "The walls have ears, and the shadows have eyes. Discretion is your shield and your sword." Kim nodded eagerly, drinking in every word like a man dying of thirst. The bustling markets became his training ground, the horse trading expeditions his classroom. He learned to blend in, to become a ghost in the crowd, while his keen eyes missed nothing. The pungent smell of horse sweat mixed with the aromatic spices in the air, creating a unique perfume that Kim associated with his newfound craft. Colonel Creighton, the puppet master of this grand game of shadows, introduced Kim to other players. Among them was Hurry Chunder Mukherjee, a Bengali intellectual whose round, jovial face masked a mind as sharp as a razor. Hurry's words flowed like honey, sweet yet substantial, as he opened Kim's eyes to the vast tapestry of Indian politics. "You see, Kim," Hurry would explain, his eyes twinkling behind his spectacles, "India is but a jewel in a much larger crown. The British Empire, Russia, and others, they all dance around each other like wary tigers, each seeking to gain the upper hand." With each revelation, Kim's world expanded exponentially. The complexity of it all both thrilled and daunted him, spurring him to throw himself into his studies with renewed vigor. He was determined to master every aspect of his craft, to prove himself worthy of the trust placed in him. The art of coding and decoding messages became Kim's passion. Each cipher was a puzzle that set his mind ablaze, a challenge that required both intelligence and creativity to master. Hours would fly by as he hunched over scraps of paper, his brow furrowed in concentration, fingers stained with ink as he unraveled complex systems. Map-making, once a tedious chore, took on new meaning as Kim learned its crucial role in military strategy and espionage. He pored over cartography texts, his fingers tracing the contours of far-off lands he had yet to see. In his mind's eye, he could picture the mountain passes and hidden valleys where empires might rise or fall. Languages, always Kim's forte, became an even more potent tool in his arsenal. He immersed himself in the dialects and idioms of various regions, each new phrase a key that could unlock doors of opportunity or reveal hidden dangers. The musicality of different tongues danced in his ears, a symphony of information waiting to be deciphered. Yet as Kim delved deeper into the shadowy world of the great game, he found himself grappling with conflicting loyalties. His British heritage pulled him in one direction, while his deep connection to Indian culture tugged at his heart. This internal struggle became both a source of strength and a wellspring of doubt. In quiet moments, when the bustle of the day faded into the stillness of night, Kim would lie awake, pondering his place in this grand tapestry. He was a child of two worlds, walking a tightrope between East and West. As he closed his eyes, the faces of his mentors, Creighton, Mahbub, Hurry, swam before him, each representing a different facet of his increasingly complex identity. The duality of his nature, once a source of confusion, was slowly transforming into a unique advantage. Kim realized that he could navigate both worlds with ease, slipping between cultures as effortlessly as changing clothes. This realization brought with it a sense of power, but also a deep responsibility. As Kim's involvement in the world of espionage deepened, so too did his understanding of the consequences of his actions. Each piece of information he gathered, each coded message he deciphered, could have far-reaching implications. The great game was no longer just an exciting adventure. It was a deadly serious business where lives and the fate of nations hung in the balance. The boy who had once roamed the streets of Lahore with carefree abandon was growing into a young man with the weight of empires on his shoulders. Yet even as the complexities of his role threatened to overwhelm him, Kim found solace in the thrill of the game and the knowledge that he was part of something greater than himself. As the sun set on another day of clandestine activities, Kim received an unexpected summons. His heart raced as he read the coded message, deciphering it with practiced ease. A new mission awaited him, one that would take him far from the familiar streets of Lahore. With a mix of excitement and trepidation, Kim packed his meager belongings, wondering what challenges lay ahead in the misty mountains of Simla. Kim's journey took an unexpected turn. He was dispatched to Simla, a hill station nestled in the foothills of the Himalayas. There he was to train under the enigmatic Lurgan Sahib, a master of disguise and deception whose shop would become Kim's new classroom. The moment Kim stepped into Lurgan's shop, the world around him seemed to shift. The air was thick with the scent of sandalwood and exotic spices, making his head spin. Trinkets from across Asia adorned every surface, their mysterious allure drawing him in like a moth to a flame. Jade figurines gleamed in the dim light, while intricately woven Persian rugs whispered tales of far-off lands beneath his feet. Lurgan, a tall man with eyes that seemed to pierce through Kim's very soul, wasted no time in beginning the young boy's education. "Observation is key," he said, his voice low and intense. "Tell me what you see." Kim's heart raced as his eyes darted around the room, taking in every detail. He described the intricate patterns on a nearby rug, the slight chip on the corner of an ornate mirror, the way the light caught a jade figurine. With each observation, Lurgan's eyes narrowed, a hint of approval flickering across his face. As days melted into weeks, Kim's training intensified. The shop became a crucible, forging him into something new. Lurgan taught him the art of disguise, showing him how to transform not just his appearance, but his very essence. Kim learned to slouch like a beggar, his stomach growling with imagined hunger. He practiced the confident stride of a merchant, feeling the weight of invisible coins in his pockets. He adopted the accent of a nobleman from Delhi, tasting the unfamiliar words on his tongue. "Your body is your canvas," Lurgan would say, applying makeup to Kim's face with expert strokes. "Your mind is the brush. Paint yourself anew with each disguise." The training was grueling, pushing Kim to his limits. His throat grew sore from practicing accents. His muscles ached from holding unfamiliar poses. But with each passing day, he felt a new strength growing within him, a confidence that seemed to radiate from his very core. Lurgan's lessons extended beyond physical disguise. He taught Kim the art of memory, showing him how to recall the tiniest details that could make or break a mission. Kim learned to resist hypnosis, his mind becoming a fortress against outside influence. He practiced maintaining his composure under the most intense pressure, sweat beading on his brow as Lurgan tested him again and again. One particularly challenging test came on a sweltering afternoon. The heat seemed to press down on Kim like a physical weight as Lurgan sat him down in front of a table laden with various objects. "Close your eyes," he instructed. When Kim opened them again, the objects had been rearranged. "Tell me what's different," Lurgan demanded. Kim's mind raced, trying to remember the exact position of each item. He pointed out the changes, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure Lurgan could hear it. Lurgan's face remained impassive, giving nothing away. As the test progressed, Lurgan employed increasingly devious tricks to break Kim's concentration. He would suddenly shout, the sound echoing off the shop's walls. Heavy objects would crash to the floor, making Kim jump. Lurgan would lean in close, whispering unsettling words that sent shivers down Kim's spine. But Kim clung to his training, refusing to let his mask slip. Alongside the art of deception, Kim delved into the world of gemology. Lurgan taught him to identify precious stones, to spot the telltale signs of a forgery. This knowledge, Lurgan explained, would provide Kim with the perfect cover as a jewel trader. "In the great game," Lurgan said, his eyes glinting like the diamonds he held, "information is the most precious gem of all." As his training progressed, Kim found himself slipping effortlessly between identities. He could become anyone, anywhere, blending into crowds like a chameleon. His natural talents, honed by Lurgan's rigorous instruction, had transformed him into a formidable agent. Yet even as Kim reveled in his newfound skills, a part of him wondered about the cost of such deception. Who was he really beneath all these layers of disguise? The question nagged at him like an itch he couldn't scratch. But he pushed these thoughts aside, focusing on the task at hand. In the final days of his training, Kim put all his skills to the test. He moved through Simla's bustling streets, his senses alive to every sight and sound. He gathered intelligence without raising a single eyebrow, slipping in and out of conversations like a ghost. He was no longer just a street-smart orphan. He had become a sophisticated agent, capable of navigating the most complex social circles with ease. As Kim stood before Lurgan on his last day, the master of disguise nodded with satisfaction. "You've learned well," he said. "But remember, in the great game, the learning never stops." Kim left Lurgan's shop, his mind whirling with all he had learned. He was no longer just Kim, the orphan boy. He was a master of disguise, a gatherer of secrets, a player in the great game. And as he stepped out into the streets of Simla, he knew that his greatest adventures were yet to come. But as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the bustling streets of Simla, Kim felt a sudden chill run down his spine, A man in a nondescript brown coat brushed past him, pressing a small piece of paper into his hand. Kim's heart raced as he unfolded the note, his eyes widening as he read the message within. His training was about to be put to the ultimate test, and the stakes were higher than he could have ever imagined. Kim's training had reached its pinnacle, culminating in a mission that would test every skill he had acquired. He was about to face his greatest challenge yet, intercepting 2 foreign spies who threatened the security of British India. The crisp Himalayan air bit at Kim's exposed skin, carrying with it the scent of pine and distant snow. His fingers, nimble from years of practice, deftly adjusted his disguise. In moments, the street urchin from Lahore vanished, replaced by a nondescript native boy. Beside him stood Hari Chunder Mukherjee, his partner and mentor, a man whose jovial exterior belied a razor-sharp mind. "Ready, little friend?" Hari's voice was barely above a whisper. Kim nodded, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and fear. They set off into the treacherous mountain terrain, their footsteps light on the rocky paths that snaked between towering peaks. The landscape seemed alive, shifting and changing with each step. Massive mountains loomed overhead, their snow-capped summits piercing the clouds like ancient guardians. Narrow ledges tested their resolve, the wind howling through crevices, threatening to pluck them from the mountainside. In bustling bazaars that clung to the mountainsides like vibrant tapestries, Kim's ability to blend in proved invaluable. He flitted between stalls, a shadow among the crowd. The cacophony of haggling merchants and bleating goats became a symphony of intelligence. Each snippet of conversation, every furtive glance, was a note Kim carefully filed away. The aroma of cardamom and cinnamon wafted from a nearby tea house, a warm haven against the biting cold. Kim slipped inside, his youthful appearance disarming suspicion. He sipped steaming chai, ears pricked for any whisper of information about the spies. As he listened, he pieced together the puzzle of their mission, each detail falling into place like a perfectly cut gem. Suddenly, a familiar figure caught Kim's eye. The Lama, his weathered face a map of wisdom and devotion, made his way through the crowded street. Kim's heart clenched, torn between duty and devotion. The old man's quest for the River of the Arrow seemed a world away from the dangerous game of espionage. "My Chela," the Lama called out, his voice carrying over the bustle of the bazaar. Kim hesitated, then approached, bowing his head in respect. "Holy One," he murmured, "I am honored to see you." As Kim helped the Lama navigate the rugged terrain, his mind whirled with strategies and secrets. The conflict within him grew, a storm of emotions threatening to break his carefully crafted facade. Days passed in a blur of careful planning and covert observation. Finally, Kim and Hari's chance arrived. They infiltrated the spies' camp, posing as local guides. Kim's hands moved with the grace of a magician as he pilfered important documents from right under the noses of their targets. The climax unfolded like a perfectly choreographed dance. Kim created a diversion, his young voice raised in alarm about an approaching patrol. In the ensuing chaos, the spies fled into the night, abandoning their precious cargo, maps and notes that held the key to British India's defenses. As the dust settled, Kim felt the weight of his accomplishment. He had transitioned from a mere trainee to a valuable player in the great game. The respect in Colonel Creighton's eyes when they reported back was a testament to his growth. Yet as the adrenaline faded, Kim found himself grappling with the realities of his dual life. The deception that had become second nature now cast a long shadow. Even as he celebrated his triumph, a part of him ached for the simplicity of the boy he once was. In the quiet moments that followed, as the Himalayan winds whispered ancient secrets, Kim stood at the crossroads of his identity. The mission had not just tested his skills, it had forced him to confront the complexities of loyalty, duty, and the price of playing the great game. As night fell, Kim made his way back to the Lama's side. The old man's eyes lit up at the sight of his young disciple. "Ah, my Chela," the Lama said, his voice filled with warmth. "Are you ready to continue our search for the River of the Arrow?" Kim opened his mouth to reply, but the words caught in his throat. The weight of his recent mission pressed down on him, a stark contrast to the spiritual journey the Lama proposed. As he stood there, torn between two worlds, A messenger approached with urgent news from Colonel Creighton. Kim's heart raced. Would he be called back into the great game, or could he follow the path of enlightenment with his beloved teacher? Kim's schooling and first major mission had drawn to a close. He found himself reunited with the Lama, eager to resume their quest for the River of the Arrow. The familiar sight of the old man's weathered face and kind eyes stirred a warmth in Kim's chest that he hadn't realized he'd missed. As they set out on their journey, India unfurled before them like a vibrant tapestry. The air hummed with the cacophony of bustling cities, gradually giving way to the peaceful murmur of sleepy villages. Flat plains stretched endlessly, only to rise into the foothills of the majestic Himalayas, their snow-capped peaks piercing the azure sky. Kim's recent experiences had sharpened his senses, and he found himself viewing their travels through new eyes. Every sight, smell, and sound seemed more vivid, more significant. The pungent aroma of spices in the market, the feel of rough stone beneath his feet in ancient temples, the distant cry of a peacock in the jungle, all of it etched itself into his memory with startling clarity. The Lama's joy at Kim's return was palpable, his wrinkled face lighting up whenever he gazed upon his young disciple. "Ah, my Chela," he would often say, his voice warm with affection. "How you have grown." And indeed, Kim had grown, not just in height, but in wisdom and cunning. His shoulders seemed broader, his stride more confident, his eyes more alert. As they walked, the Lama continued to teach Kim about Buddhist philosophy and the path to enlightenment. His words flowed like a gentle stream, and Kim found himself drinking in the knowledge with a newfound thirst. The old man's teaching seemed to take on new depth and meaning, resonating with Kim's recent experiences in ways he couldn't quite articulate. Yet even as he absorbed these spiritual lessons, a part of Kim remained alert, ever watchful. His eyes darted from face to face in crowded bazaars, noting details that others might miss. He watched as saffron-robed sadhus mingled with silk-clad merchants, and pilgrims from distant lands shuffled alongside local farmers. Every interaction, every snippet of conversation was filed away in his mind, potentially useful information for his other life, the life of a spy. One evening, as they settled by a crackling fire, the flames casting dancing shadows on their faces, a group of travelers joined them. Kim listened intently to their tales, his mind working overtime to sift truth from exaggeration. When one man spoke of unrest in a nearby province, Kim's ears pricked up. He asked casual questions, steering the conversation to glean more details, all while maintaining the appearance of an innocent young traveler. The duality of his existence weighed heavily on Kim at times. He was at once a devoted Chela and a skilled spy, roles that seemed to pull him in opposite directions. The conflict churned inside him like a stormy sea, threatening to overwhelm him. Yet as the days passed, he began to see how each aspect of his life enriched the other. His spy training made him a better protector for the Lama, while the old man's teachings gave him a deeper understanding of the world he was navigating. Their bond deepened with each passing day, transcending the traditional roles of master and disciple. In quiet moments, Kim found himself studying the Lama's face, noting the lines etched by years of laughter and contemplation. He felt a fierce protectiveness towards the old man, a feeling that went beyond duty and into the realm of love. It was as if the Lama had become the father he had never known, an anchor in the tumultuous sea of his double life. Their journey took them to ancient temples where incense smoke curled lazily towards intricately carved ceilings. The air was thick with the scent of sandalwood and the low hum of chanted prayers. They bathed in holy rivers, the cool water a blessed relief from the scorching sun. Kim watched as the Lama's face relaxed in blissful meditation, the worries and cares of the world seeming to melt away from his weathered features. In remote monasteries perched on mountainsides, Kim observed as the Lama engaged in deep discussions with other holy men. Their words were a melodious hum in the thin mountain air, punctuated by the occasional tinkling of prayer bells. Kim found himself torn between absorbing the spiritual wisdom being shared and scanning their surroundings for potential threats or valuable information. Each new location presented its own challenges, testing Kim's ability to balance his spiritual growth with his secret duties. In a bustling town, he deftly pickpocketed a suspicious character who had been eyeing the llama's meager possessions. His heart raced as his nimble fingers extracted the man's papers, the thrill of the act mixing with a twinge of guilt. Later, in the privacy of their room, he examined the documents, committing the information to memory before destroying the evidence. As they traveled, Kim became increasingly aware of the tensions simmering beneath India's colorful surface. He noted the subtle hostilities between different religious and ethnic groups, the whispered complaints about British rule. This information he carefully collected and subtly passed on during his infrequent meetings with his handlers. Each piece of intelligence was like a puzzle piece, slowly forming a larger picture of the complex political landscape. Through it all, the Lama remained blissfully unaware of Kim's clandestine activities. His focus remained steadfastly on their spiritual quest, his eyes always searching the horizon for signs of the elusive river of the Arrow. And Kim, despite the complexities of his double life, found himself drawn ever deeper into the old man's vision of enlightenment. The Lama's unwavering faith was like a beacon, guiding Kim through the moral ambiguities of his existence. As the sun set on another day of their journey, Kim watched the Lama's silhouette against the darkening sky. The old man's hands were raised in prayer, his voice a soft murmur on the evening breeze. In that moment, Kim felt the full weight of his dual existence, the spy and the seeker, the protector and the protected. He closed his eyes, letting the conflicting emotions wash over him, knowing that his path forward would be neither simple nor easy, but trusting that it would lead him where he needed to go. The next morning, as they packed their meager belongings, the Lama's eyes sparkled with a new intensity. "My Chela," he said, his voice trembling with excitement, "I have had a vision, the river of the Arrow. It calls to us from the heart of the mountains." Kim felt a shiver run down his spine as he gazed at the looming peaks of the Himalayas. Something in the air had changed, a sense of anticipation mixed with foreboding. As they set off towards the towering mountains, Kim couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest challenge, and perhaps their greatest danger, lay ahead. Kim and the Lama embarked on a perilous expedition into the Himalayas. Their quest was driven by an unwavering belief that the source of the River of the Arrow lay hidden within the towering mountain range. The path before them stretched like a serpent's back, winding through jagged peaks and plunging valleys. With each step, the air thinned, biting at their lungs and stinging their faces. Kim, young and nimble, found himself constantly glancing back at the Lama, worry etching lines on his youthful face as he watched the old man's frail form battle against the unforgiving elements. "Holy One, are you holding up?" Kim called out, his voice nearly swallowed by the howling wind. The Lama's eyes gleamed with an inner fire as he nodded. "Each step purifies us, my Chela. We draw closer to enlightenment with every breath." As they ascended, the world around them transformed. Lush forests gave way to stark, barren rock faces. Gentle streams morphed into roaring torrents that echoed through the canyons. Kim's street-smart instincts, honed in the bustling bazaars of Lahore, were put to the ultimate test. He scoured the mountainsides for edible plants, his fingers nimbly constructing shelters from sparse materials, and navigated treacherous ice fields with a mix of gut feeling and the training he'd received. One evening, as they huddled in the relative safety of a shallow cave, the Lama's gaze grew distant. "I see it, Kim," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the wind's mournful song. "The river, it calls to me." Kim watched, a mixture of fascination and fear gripping his heart, as the Lama seemed to slip into another realm. The boundary between the physical world and the spiritual plane blurred, and Kim found himself drawn into the Lama's visions. Fleeting images of shimmering waters and golden light danced at the edges of his consciousness, leaving him both awed and unsettled. Their journey led them through remote mountain villages, where Kim's gift for languages proved to be their salvation. He charmed suspicious elders with respectful bows and quick wit, while curious children were won over by his playful smiles and stories of the world beyond their peaks. "You have a silver tongue, young Sahib," an old woman cackled as she ladled out steaming bowls of hearty stew, her eyes sharp despite her age, fixed on Kim. "But beware, the mountains have ears, and not all who wander here are friends. Kim nodded solemnly, tucking away the cryptic warning in the recesses of his mind. Even here, in the very roof of the world, the great game was afoot. He kept his senses alert, noting the positions of hidden mountain passes and storing away whispered rumors of foreign agents that floated on the thin air. As they pushed onward, the journey exacted its toll. The llama's steps grew slower, each one a battle against gravity and exhaustion. Kim felt the constant gnaw of hunger in his belly, sharp and insistent. Yet with each shared hardship, the bond between boy and holy man deepened. Kim found himself not just protecting the llama, but drawing strength from the old man's unwavering faith in gentle wisdom. One crisp morning, as they stood on a dizzying precipice overlooking a vast, mist-shrouded valley, the llama turned to Kim. His eyes were clear, filled with a light that seemed to emanate from within his very soul. "Do you see it now, my Chela?" he asked, his voice soft yet filled with wonder. And for a breathtaking moment, Kim did. The world around him seemed to shift, colors becoming more vibrant, sounds more crisp. He caught a fleeting glimpse of something beyond the physical, a river of pure light, flowing through the very heart of the mountains and stretching beyond the horizon of his imagination. As they began their descent into the valley, both Kim and the llama were changed. The boy had grown, not just in strength and skill, but in spirit. His eyes held a new depth, reflecting the wisdom he had gained from the mountains and his mentor. The llama, though his body was weary, moved with a renewed purpose. It was as if the very mountains had whispered their ancient secrets to him, filling him with a quiet, unshakable certainty. Their journey through the Himalayas had tested them in ways they could never have foreseen. But as they faced the path ahead, Kim and the llama knew that they had been transformed by the mountains. Their bond, forged in shared hardships and spiritual awakenings, was stronger than ever. The search for the River of the Arrow continued, but it had become more than just a physical quest. It was now a journey of the soul, each step bringing them closer to a truth that lay beyond the veil of the ordinary world. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Kim's instincts suddenly prickled. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up, and he felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. He scanned the rocky outcroppings around them, his keen eyes searching for any sign of movement. "Holy One," he whispered urgently, "I think we should find shelter for the night. Something doesn't feel right." But before the llama could respond, a shadow moved against the fading light. Kim's heart raced as he recognized the unmistakable silhouette of a man with a rifle. With a sinking feeling, he realized their peaceful journey was about to take a dangerous turn. High in the remote Himalayas, Kim and the llama found themselves in a perilous situation. They were face to face with danger as the Russian spies Kim had previously thwarted caught up with them. The air was thin and biting, carrying the crisp scent of snow and distant pines. Each breath felt like a struggle, mirroring the tension that gripped Kim's heart. His eyes darted nervously, scanning the craggy landscape for any sign of movement. The llama, blissfully unaware of the impending threat, continued his serene walk along the narrow mountain path, his robes fluttering gently in the whistling wind. "Stay close, Holy One," Kim whispered, his voice barely audible above the howling gusts. The path, no wider than a man's shoulders, hugged the mountainside like a precarious ribbon. To their right, a sheer drop plummeted into a misty abyss, the bottom lost in swirling clouds. Suddenly, Kim's worst fears materialized. Two familiar figures emerged from behind a rocky outcrop, their eyes glinting with malice. The Russian spies had found them. Kim's mind raced, recalling every lesson, every trick he'd learned in the great game. He positioned himself between the llama and the approaching danger, his young body taut with tension. The cold air stung his nostrils, and he could taste the metallic tang of fear on his tongue. "What do you want?" Kim called out, forcing his voice to remain steady, despite the fear churning in his gut. The larger of the two spies, a man with a scar running down his left cheek like a jagged river, sneered. "You know what we want, boy. The documents. And a little payback for our last encounter." The standoff crackled with tension, like the air before a lightning strike. Kim's eyes darted around, searching for any advantage in the treacherous terrain. The llama, sensing the hostility, placed a gentle hand on Kim's shoulder, its warmth a stark contrast to the icy fear gripping the boy. "Violence begets only more violence, my Chela," the old man said softly, his words carried away by the wind almost as soon as they left his lips. But the spies had no patience for peaceful philosophies. The scarred man lunged forward, his meaty fist aimed at Kim's face. Kim ducked, years of street-fighting instincts kicking in. The rush of air above his head was like the whisper of death narrowly avoided. But in his evasion, he bumped into the llama, who stumbled backward towards the cliff edge. Time seemed to slow, each second stretching into eternity as Kim watched his mentor teeter on the brink. The old man's eyes widened in surprise, his arms windmilling as he fought for balance. With a desperate lunge, Kim grabbed the llama's robes, the rough fabric biting into his palms as he yanked him back to safety. But the sudden movement left Kim exposed, and the second spy seized the opportunity. A fist connected with Kim's ribs, and pain exploded through his side like fireworks. He gasped, the thin mountain air suddenly feeling even more inadequate. As Kim struggled to catch his breath, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A thin trickle of blood was making its way down the llama's weathered face, stark crimson against his pale skin. The old man had been struck in the scuffle, his peaceful demeanor shattered by the harsh reality of violence. Something snapped inside Kim. He was no longer just a boy playing at spies. He was a protector, a guardian. With a feral growl that surprised even himself, he launched himself at the nearest spy, all finesse forgotten in his fury. The fight was brutal and swift, a chaotic dance on the edge of oblivion. Kim's smaller size became an advantage on the narrow path. He ducked and weaved, using the spy's bulk against them. One misstep sent the scarred man stumbling, his arms pinwheeling as he fought for balance on the cliff's edge, small rocks skittering away under his feet and disappearing into the void. In that moment of distraction, Kim struck. He drove his elbow into the second spy's solar plexus with all the force he could muster. The man's breath left him in a whoosh, his eyes bulging in surprise. Kim followed up quickly, sweeping the man's legs out from under him. The spy went down hard, his head cracking against the rocky ground with a sickening thud. But victory was short-lived. The scarred man had regained his footing and now advanced on Kim with murderous intent. They grappled at the edge of the precipice, each seeking to push the other over. Kim could feel the man's hot breath on his face, see the hatred burning in his eyes. The boy's muscles screamed with effort, his feet scrabbling for purchase on the loose gravel. Just when it seemed Kim's strength might fail, a commotion erupted further down the path. Shouts echoed off the mountain walls, startling the combatants. Local authorities, alerted by Kim's earlier messages, had arrived. In that split second of surprise, Kim made his move. He twisted, using the spy's momentum against him, and sent the man sprawling. Before the spy could recover, Kim had snatched the hidden documents from his jacket, feeling the crinkle of paper beneath his fingers. The authorities swarmed the scene, quickly subduing and capturing the spies. Kim, panting and battered, stumbled back to the llama's side. The old man's eyes were wide with shock, his usual serenity replaced by a look of profound sadness that cut Kim to the core. As the adrenaline faded, the full weight of what had transpired settled over them like a heavy blanket. Kim tended to the llama's wound with trembling hands, his mind reeling from the violence he had both witnessed and inflicted. The cut wasn't deep, but it seemed to Kim like a gash in the very fabric of their peaceful journey. The llama spoke softly, his voice tinged with sorrow. "I have seen your other life, my Chela. The life of shadows and strife." Kim felt a lump form in his throat, making it hard to swallow. "I'm sorry, Holy One. I never wanted you to see this." The words felt inadequate, unable to bridge the chasm that seemed to have opened between them. They sat in silence as the authorities dealt with the captured spies. The setting sun painted the Himalayas in hues of gold and crimson, a beautiful backdrop that seemed to mock the turmoil in their hearts. The majestic peaks stood impassive, eternal witnesses to the fleeting dramas of men. Kim looked at his hands, still smeared with dirt and blood. He had protected the llama, secured vital intelligence, and emerged victorious. But at what cost? The peaceful teachings of his mentor seemed a world away from the brutal reality of the great game. The boy felt torn between two worlds, unsure of where he truly belonged. As darkness fell, Kim and the Lama huddled together on the mountain path, both physically and emotionally exhausted. The confrontation had changed them, forcing them to confront the complexities of their relationship and their individual paths. The night air grew colder, seeping into their bones, but neither made a move to seek shelter. The incident marked a turning point, leaving both Kim and the Lama introspective and uncertain. As they prepared to continue their journey, the weight of their experiences hung heavy in the air, setting the stage for the final spiritual and personal revelations that awaited them. Kim's mind raced with worry as he glanced at the Lama's pale face. The old man's eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. The cut on his forehead had stopped bleeding, but angry bruises were beginning to form. A wave of guilt washed over Kim. He had brought this violence into the Lama's peaceful world. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Kim made a silent vow. He would do whatever it took to make things right, to heal not just the Lama's physical wounds, but the spiritual rift that had opened between them. Little did he know, this vow would lead him down a path that would test every ounce of his strength and devotion. In the aftermath of the confrontation, Kim took on the role of caretaker. His sole focus became nursing the Lama back to health, a task he approached with unwavering dedication. They found sanctuary in a remote mountain village, nestled high among the peaks, far from the tumult they had left behind. The air was thin and crisp, carrying the sharp scent of pine and the promise of distant snow. Each breath felt like a cleansing ritual, purging the chaos of recent events from their lungs. Kim worked tirelessly, his young hands moving with surprising skill as he prepared herbal remedies. The small hut they occupied became a world unto itself, filled with the earthy aroma of medicinal plants and the soft murmur of Kim's constant reassurances to the ailing Lama. But the human body has its limits, and Kim's eventually reached his. The strain of recent events, coupled with the unforgiving mountain environment, took their toll. One evening, as the sun dipped below the jagged horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Kim's legs gave way beneath him. He collapsed to the rough wooden floor, his body burning with a fever that matched the intensity of his recent determination. In the dim light of their shared room, both Kim and the Lama lay still, their bodies healing, but their minds alive with transformation. The Lama, though his eyes remained closed, found his spirit more awake than ever. In the quiet moments between breaths, he reflected on their journey. Every step, every conversation with Kim played out in his mind like a vivid tapestry, each thread glowing with newfound significance. It was then that the realization washed over him, as cool and cleansing as the mountain streams outside. The Lama's weathered face softened with a smile as understanding dawned. He had found his enlightenment, not in a mythical river, but in the unwavering devotion of the boy beside him. The true path to spiritual fulfillment lay not in solitary quests, but in compassion and human connection. Meanwhile, Kim's feverish mind grappled with the complexities of his identity. In his dreams, he walked a tightrope between two worlds, the lush green hills of Ireland on one side, the vibrant, bustling streets of India on the other. These once separate realms began to blur and merge in his mind's eye, like watercolors bleeding together on parchment. As the fever broke and clarity returned, Kim embraced a new understanding of himself. He was neither fully Irish nor fully Indian, but something unique, a bridge between worlds. This realization filled him with a sense of purpose that seemed to make the very air around him hum with potential. Days passed, marked by the slow rhythm of recovery and the gradual strengthening of their bodies. The small room became a sanctuary of wisdom and understanding, filled with deep, meaningful conversations that seemed to make the walls expand with the weight of their revelations. The Lama, his voice soft but filled with conviction, imparted his final teachings to Kim. "My son," he said, his eyes twinkling with a mixture of affection and newfound clarity, "remember that all beings are interconnected. The compassion you show to others is a reflection of the divine within you." Kim listened intently, his dark eyes wide and focused, absorbing every word like a sponge. He shared his decision to continue his work in the great game, seeing it now not just as a duty, but as a calling. I can use my skills to help others, he explained, his voice filled with newfound purpose, to make a difference in both worlds I belong to. The Lama nodded, understanding and respect evident in his gaze. Their paths, though different, were equally valid and important. The bond between them, forged through trials and enlightenment, was stronger than ever, an unbreakable thread in the fabric of their intertwined destinies. As the days grew warmer and their strength returned, Kim and the Lama prepared to leave their mountain sanctuary. They packed their meager belongings, each lost in thought about the journey ahead. The air was thick with a mixture of excitement and nostalgia, the small hut that had been their world now feeling both familiar and strange. Kim stood at the threshold, looking out at the vast landscape before them. The mountains, once imposing and alien, now seemed like old friends bidding them farewell. He felt a mix of excitement and trepidation, his heart racing with the knowledge that he was stepping into a new chapter of his life. The Lama placed a gentle hand on Kim's shoulder, the touch grounding and reassuring. "We have both found what we were truly seeking," he said softly, his words carried on the mountain breeze, "not just in the world around us, but within ourselves and in each other." Kim nodded, a lump forming in his throat. He had entered these mountains as a boy torn between worlds, his identity as fragmented as the rocky terrain around them. Now he was leaving as a young man, with a clear sense of his identity and purpose, as solid and unwavering as the peaks themselves. As they took their first steps down the mountain path, the stones crunching beneath their feet, Kim felt ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. He would balance his role in the great game with his spiritual growth, carrying the lessons of the mountains in his heart like precious gems. The journey ahead was uncertain, the path winding down into mist-shrouded valleys. But Kim knew that whatever came, he was prepared to meet it with courage, wisdom, and an open heart. As the mountain air filled his lungs one last time, he smiled, ready to embrace the next adventure. Not as a boy between worlds, but as a bridge connecting them.
This book was generated using Speakter's AI voices. You can create human-like voiceovers in over 50 languages.